What's going on, guys? Welcome into the Week 5 NFL edition of Bogey Free. I am your host, Matt Jones. You can find me on Twitter at MattJonesTFR. We are also being joined with the triumphant return of Steve Holupka back to the program at The Real Holupka. What's going on, Steve? How are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Trying to get some offense going in this Tampa Bay New England game, but looks like Brady's starting to get things going.
We're starting to get on a little roll here, hopefully, and hopefully they can sniff that over-under that Vegas put out in the beginning of the week. And lucky for us, we are being joined by Brandon Sanders. You can find him on Twitter at Brandon T. Sanders. He writes for Fantasy Footballers. Thanks for coming on, Brandon. How you doing tonight?
Doing great, guys. I'm enjoying the game so far. Good to see the resurgence of one Doug Martin, but it's a good night so far, and I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for joining us. This will be fun. So real quick before we get into the Week 5 action, I have the pleasure for the first time this season to quickly talk about my lineup from the past week for the Listener League. And I'm curious to hear your guys' take on my lineup. I think from a process standpoint, it was pretty much what I was hoping for. A few chalk plays and then a couple of random throw-ins here. So I went Rivers to Williams for my stack. I had Cook, who obviously left the game early, so that didn't really help me, but it didn't hurt too bad. I had Gurley, Hopkins, Rashard Matthews. Went with Croft at the tight end position, Devontae Freeman, and Jaguars D. It was interesting because we had talked. Obviously, you guys weren't on last week. We had Jeff Ulrich on, and we talked a little bit about mixing up Rivers with all of his pass catchers, basically, and just sort of hoping that game, went over. So, you guys have any thoughts on that lineup?
Yeah, man. I mean, knocking down Rivers, taking that with Tyrell, hitting that big play against Philly, who's had a penchant for giving up those big plays over the top so far. Great move there. Just really made some good solid plays. Nuke was a good one, too, for some chalk. So you hit on that one also. So, yeah, man, congrats.
Thank you.
I like the tight end play. That was bold. Adding the no Eifert, let's put in the other Tyler in. That's pretty solid, man. I like that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was definitely a hungover idea on Sunday morning.
It works. It's DFS. Roll with it.
Exactly. I was thinking of it, and I was like, you know what? I was like, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys over 20% in the lineup. So again, that just goes to show, that lineup scored 193 points. Like, you don't need to get terribly cute all the way through your lineup. You really just need to hit on a couple of low-owned plays. Having Rivers I was the only person in the contest that had Rivers and Tyrell, either one, like just by themselves, let alone as a stack. So that paid off handsomely. But enough gloating for one night. I was pretty happy about that. We had a pretty good week overall with some of the picks that me and Jeff talked about last week. So hopefully we can knock it down again this week. And let's get started with quarterback. Brandon, I'll kick it to you first. What are we thinking for cash purposes this week on the main slate?
So when we're talking cash, I mean, basically you're looking for just someone that can just put up consistency. You're just looking to just trying to get your cash back and or just make that profit. So you're not really trying to be too contrarian about it, but you still want to look at ones that can kind of set you apart from that. So I'm big on Dak Prescott this week against Green Bay. He's stacked 2 good games in a row. He's 8th in the most DraftKings points right now out of all the QBs. So that's pretty fantastic that he's keeping up with that. He's got a good game against Green Bay. They've shown signs of defense. I really can't tell what Green Bay we're going to get because each week it's a little different as far as their defensive stance is concerned. But I think Dak's showing off really good. So I'm big on Dak this week for sure.
Absolutely. Steve, is there anybody else jumping out to you for cash purposes? Dak's at 6,800, so sort of like a mid-priced. Is there anybody you're paying up for or paying down for? What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, Dak, I think, would be my number one cash game play. If you are looking for a bit of a cheaper option, you could even go as low as Eli Manning at 6,100. Obviously, the Giants are super pass heavy, and his offensive line has actually looked a little bit better as of late. And playing at home against the Chargers, pretty decent over under for that game as well. Right now, 44 and a half. Probably going to go a little bit higher before game time. He's implied for a 24-point total at home. Not the worst option if you're trying to save a couple bucks there. So yeah, I think those two would be my cash game plays. Of course, you pay up for Aaron Rodgers if you have some extra salary to spend. But again, salaries are a little bit tight this week on DK especially.
Yeah, definitely. And those two guys are the two top tagged on FanShare as we're recording this Thursday night. The next guy down, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I guess I was a little shocked, is Carson Palmer. What are our thoughts on that game in general, and where are we viewing him as a cash play at all? What about for you, Brandon?
I mean, it is good because Philadelphia, they were only ranked 29th against the pass or against the quarterback. I mean, so it is really good. And at 5,900, it really is nice as far as if you're trying to save the play. For me, I'd probably move up a couple of $100, and I'd actually look for Deshaun Watson. KC, they look impressive at 4-0, but without Eric Berry, their secondary isn't really the same right now. And you saw Kirk Cousins line them up on Monday Night Football. You got 2 rushing touchdowns and 7 passing touchdowns with Deshaun Watson. So I'm really liking the Deshaun Watson, the nuke stack this week. I'm really digging that one for the cash lineup. But I think Palmer can do it. I mean, I like Jerron Brown. I think he's really producing. He's getting the receptions in. I'm kind of taking over as John Brown is getting a little bit healthier. But they are one-dimensional, and that's the only thing I'm kind of scared of at that price point is that without David Johnson, it's a one-way street. They know they're passing, so the defense can play into that.
Absolutely. All right, so we touched a little bit on some of the plays I'm considering. I personally am a little shocked right now because I'm scrolling through FanShare. I was just working on my article for tomorrow, and I mean, I'm looking at Tyrod Taylor this week at 5K. I mean, I looked it up before. Last year, I think he scored at least 15 points in 80% of his games last year. So I'm thinking, like, do I really? I mean, I know you can't really like stack him too comfortably with anybody. I guess you could go Clay. Not that I'm the biggest Clay fan because he's burnt me. But what are your thoughts on Tyrod this week, Steve? Because I need somebody to just tell me that I'm crazy and snap me out of it, or validate me.
Yeah, I mean, super low over under in that game right now, 39.5. So really, Vegas is not expecting a ton of points in this game. Also, Buffalo a road dog as well. So I mean, it's just something I really wouldn't be into, especially in cash games. I think for a GPP lineup, like you said, that stack with Charles Clay could be in play, but for cash, I'm not into it, even with Tyrod's rushing upside.
And then are we completely scared off of Goff Goat this week?
Goff Goat. It's not a terrible play, but yeah, I mean, at the moment, I'm not trusting Goff in cash. GPP, yeah, I mean, we could definitely talk about that. That would be an interesting play for sure. It's contrarian as all get out, but until I see a couple more games, I probably won't still be throwing Goff into my lineup in cash.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I'm mostly halfway kidding about Goff Goat. It's like a running joke with my friends and I when we watch that we just can't believe that this is like the same like roster as last year, the way that they look now compared to when Jeff Fisher was running them into the ground. But
oh gosh,
any other GPP plays that are making you excited this week, Steve, as we go through the quarterbacks? Or
yeah, I got one more, and it's Jacoby Brissett at home against San Francisco. San Francisco's defense is horrid in the passing game. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is going to have a monster day at home on that fast track against some really terrible cornerbacks. The over-under for this game actually has gone up over the last couple of days. Indy as a home favorite. Plus, you get Brissett's rushing upside as well. We've seen him score on the ground already this season. So for GPPs, yeah, I really kind of like Jacoby Brissett. I might be actually a little bit overweighting him this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He paid off a couple weeks ago, right? Him and Hilton last time they were at home. So I'm good with that. Brandon, is there anybody else jumping out at you for GPPs?
Jacoby, the brisket himself was my go-to. However, I'll play one even dirtier. This one's a little bit higher and a little bit more contrarian, but it's Matthew Stafford against Carolina. So a lot of people get scared off because it is Carolina. However, Matthew Stafford at home actually gets 3.69 more fantasy points when he plays at home ever since 2016. So a lot of people are going to be turned off on Matthew Stafford. So it's a really good contrarian play to play this week because you're not going to see it as much. I was looking through fan share, and he doesn't look to be as talked about compared to the others. Brissett's actually talked about a little bit more than he is this week right now. So
absolutely. All right. Yeah, and I mean, I honestly, the way that this week is shaping out, I feel like it's hard to really go like completely wrong just because there's not too many like obvious spots. Just because, you know, we're no Breeze, no Matt Ryan, no Simeon, you know, it's a lot of guys missing this week. So I think GPPs, you can really go a little off the wall with your stacks and see how we go. But we will come back to stacks in a little bit. So why don't we head over to running backs? And for our top three here, it looks like Bell and Gurley are going to be the most popular if we're going to believe the fanshare tags. Is there any reason to fade either of these guys for you, Steve?
No, I mean, it's kind of tough in terms of roster construction to get them both in the lineups. But yeah, I mean, Le'Veon finally turned the corner. It seemed like last week he was getting the volume early on in the season, but now the production started to come with it. So completely justified at 9,500. And Todd Gurley just keeps scoring touchdowns, man. Like he's just the unstoppable force this year in that Sean McVay offense. So both of them, I think, are really solid cash game plays that you can fit them in.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, maybe straying a little bit away from cash, but Brandon, what are your thoughts on Zeke? Because he's sort of seems to be the guy who's being a little bit forgotten about up in this range. So what are your thoughts on Zeke this week?
I definitely think he's worth the investment. He's definitely on the swing up ever since the Denver game when they shut him down. He's got the fourth most rushing yards in the league right now, and he's seen additional 19 targets as far as being passed at by Dak since that time frame, ever since the Packers game. So this is probably the more ideal matchup considering it's Green Bay. Like I said, it is a crapshoot at defense. You don't know which Green Bay you're getting. So I wouldn't be fading on him at all, really. I'd actually be interested. And it's, almost a full $1,000 down from Le'Veon right now, who's going to be the play. So.
Right. And going along with that, I mean, if people are going to be in love with Dak and they're going to stack him up with most likely Dez, I would imagine, you know, you're getting some pretty good leverage in a GPP if Zeke does, you know, score those 2 touchdowns this week and Dak finds somebody else for his passing touchdown or 2, then you're golden at that point, given the ownership. So
Dez is so low right now. You could stack all 3 almost if you wanted to. So
yeah, you just go full onslaught, just roster all the Cowboys.
Dallas, Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And then are there any cheaper options that you're looking at for cash this week, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, you got to go with the Powell Goat playing in Cleveland. Like whenever Forte doesn't play, it's just automatic. Bilal Powell is going to be a top 10 running back every single week that Matt Forte doesn't play. It's just proven. The only thing I'm a little bit apprehensive about, of course, they are on the road, really low total, but I mean, Josh McCown revenge game in there as well. So narrative street all day with Bilal Powell.
To be fair, I mean, McCown has like 14 potential revenge games though, right? So like pretty much half the league could be considered a revenge game for McCown. So yeah, I mean, definitely Powell's an interesting option. Hopefully McGuire doesn't steal another long touchdown and Powell could get a little bit even more production this week. What are your thoughts? I'm looking like super cheap at Ellington and Duke Johnson. I'll kick it to you, Brandon. Any thoughts there?
Yep. Duke Johnson is actually one of our guys for GPP. Definitely tournament play. People a lot more on For some reason, they're still trying to be in love with Isaiah Crowell as much as he's letting them down time and time again. It's just showing off that Duke Johnson is lining up in the slot with the injuries that's happening in Cleveland. I mean, Rashad Higgins shows up 1 week, gone the next on there. That they bring the other guy from the practice squad. He gets injured, he's gone. Now they're down to Kenny Britt. I don't know when he'll show up ever. So Duke Johnson's really just carrying the passing responsibility. So he's literally can be flexed in any spot, whether that's regular leagues or DFS. So, I mean, definitely he'd be worth the shot because a lot of people are just not on top of his name right now. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, for all intents and purposes, Duke is like their wide receiver 1 right now. Like, what do you have, 11 targets last week, I think?
Yeah, ridiculous amount, like 11 targets. And he's $4,900. Like, why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. You can stack so much else and just have him in there. It's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you throw in Ellington in there with his 14 targets last week, and you're looking at a solid touch floor or opportunity floor rather. And I think that'll be reasonably popular. I do think there's some value elsewhere that you don't have to just go completely, dumpster diving at the running back position this week. But I think in the GPP, you can definitely mix those guys up and sort of rotate them in the same lineups otherwise and try and get some, try and hit on one of them and see if you could finish pretty high. Outside of that, Steve, is there anybody else that's jumping out to you in the GPP?
The only one for real cheap, and this is like a total just guess about it, it's Thomas Rawls, thinking he might be the lead back in Seattle, playing against a Rams defense that is pretty terrible. Obviously, the over-under that game has moved up. It's at 47.5 right now. Like we said, Rams defense has been pretty atrocious to start the season. We saw Zeke have a really solid day against them last week. So if Thomas Rawls is that lead back for Seattle, which a lot of folks think he will be, he might be a solid play in the GPP just for a differentiator in your lineup.
Absolutely. Brandon, anybody else that's jumping out to you here for the running backs?
I know it's dirty, but if he's healthy and he's playing, which I haven't seen it, J.J. Versus Tennessee for 6,600, the volume's there. It's just he's bound to break out. I think Adam Gase is going to realize like he can't just throw. Cutler's still making the mistakes. So, man, like you really need to depend on your running back. I really think a J.J. can be that. He just needs to be fully healthy to do so. So if he's cleared to play, Tennessee's having a hard time as far as defensively. However, they do a good job against the front. So it's a sneaky play and not very, like I said, it's more contrarian. So for 6,600, I mean, it might be something to look at for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm on board with that for a little GPP action. Any, God, I feel like I'm just throwing out all the gross takes this week, but already it just feels
gross week.
It feels so terrible. But I'm like maybe I could play some Jonathan Stewart or some Frank Gore this week. Like I'm going fully against like my ageist, like I can't stand old running backs sort of like mindset, but I don't know, man. I mean, what are your thoughts on Gore this week, Steve? Because I need to be talked into or talked out of this guy.
I'm more into Gore than I am Stewart, I think. Especially in his matchup for Stewart, I don't think it's conducive to his game against Detroit. Detroit's defense is surprisingly actually really good this year. Mm-hmm. But Gore, yeah, I mean, obviously you get that revenge narrative for him as well, playing San Francisco, but they are a home favorite, which is going to be a rare occurrence until Andrew Luck comes back. I think the game script kind of could fit his style in here. He could catch a couple balls out of the backfield as well. I know Marlon Mack was practicing, but he's been kind of banged up here and there. But yeah, I could see some Frank Gore love.
Yeah, no, it feels so gross because what is he like? I think he has at least 47 years old now. Yeah, I don't know if I did the math right, but he seems like he's been in the league for as long as I have like a memory.
Yeah, I think him and Jim Brown were in the same draft class.
Oh, that's right. You're right. I forgot about that. Any sort of feel, Brandon, I'll kick it to you. Any feel for the Green Bay backfield? Is it just something we're avoiding? Or maybe if we have some clarity, is it something you're interested in? What are your thoughts there?
If we get clarity, maybe by Saturday, yeah. I'd definitely think about it, especially Tymont. I don't know, with a flak jack and a ribs, that dude's that dude's tough, especially if you can just go out there. Brooklyn and it's like, yeah, just throw a flak jacket on me. I'll just go out there and run. They're like, okay, all right, cool. I'd definitely be sitting out for a few weeks. But if he doesn't, Jamal Williams might get the start, but I really like Aaron Rodgers, especially in the third and the catching down duties. I know we're probably going to see Devontae Adams. I don't know how he says he's good to go, and they say he looks fantastic, but after that brutal hit, I don't know if he's truly 100%. So you're going to rely more on Cobb, Nelson, and I think that Jones could have a nice third option, you know. So it really just depends. But if you don't get clarity by like Sunday morning, I'm staying far away.
Yeah, I think if they're all active, I think it's a pretty easy just completely run away from that game at all costs, in at least the backfield. There's no if you can figure it out, you'll probably make money, but I don't think that anybody has like a real hold on what to do there. So anybody else, we're expanding our little running back pool here to how about for you, Steve? Anybody else here?
I think we probably exhausted the ones I'm going to be playing in my kind of rotation of GPP lineups, I think. Yeah.
All right. So let's click on over to the wide receiver pool. We have, I don't know. I really can't get a feel for wide receiver this week. Usually wide receiver is sort of like where I start and I just kind of go from there. But I mean, Odell's all the way up there. He's hurt. He's, crying on the field, wincing in pain. He comes back in, just completely tilted. And like, I'm a Giants fan, and it's just like the most tilting thing. I just want this guy to like grow up a little bit, but that's neither here nor there. So, I mean, it looks like Jordy is probably going to shake out to be one of the highest owned, along with Dez. But Cobb is also being talked about just as much. So, Brandon, is there any way that you envision Cobb and Nelson, really being like as chalky as they seem on FanShare, or do you think people are gonna lean one way or the other?
I don't know. It really it's going to depend on the game script, really. I mean, last year was kind of like the perfect storm where Chicago was just so atrocious that, and after that hit, literally they just ran up the score on them. So you saw a lot more Jordy. I'd favor Cobb if you had to like choose between a 6,700. I mean, that's definitely a good value, and you can use him as like your wide receiver too. I got him in there with Hopkins this week, and then throwing in a mercy play at Moncrief, just hoping that Brissett finds him. Good luck. But, at the same time, like he's going to be fitting into lineups better than you paying up for Jordy. But I think both are great options. Even if you did Jordy and Cobb and just stacked it, you're spending a lot of your revenue. But, hey, I mean, it would probably work for sure. I mean, Dallas' secondary is not looking good without Scandrick. So.
Right. And speaking of Moncrief, just because you mentioned him real quick, I lost a freaking Twitter bet. I got to send a beer to Texas because
oh man,
I gotta send a beer to Texas because Moncrief scores a damn touchdown last week. Like I'm like, I got roped into this stupid bet with a guy who hits me up for questions every once in a while. And I was just like, I can't believe this just happened. Like, I get the alert on my phone. I'm not even watching the stupid game. I get the alert on my phone. I'm like, oh my God, I got to figure out how to send a beer to Texas now.
Yes.
But Steve, where are you looking for your cash plays this week? I mean, Dez seems like he's got to be a lock in cash.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Like Dez, 100% locking in all my cash lineups for only 6,500 against this Green Bay secondary. And they are home favorites with a 52 over-under. I mean, geez, what else could you want for like the perfect storm of playing Dez right now? I think he's a total lock. Really kind of digging him. We talked about the Green Bay guys also. It's just hard to pay up this week to really get some of those elite options into your lineup. So let's take a look a little bit further down the list. One guy I really do like is Deron Brown, actually, at 4,500. Playing on the outside against that Philadelphia secondary. Obviously, Arizona right now is on pace. I think Carson Palmer's on pace to break the record for pass attempts in the season. So we've seen Deron Brown get double-digit targets as well over the last couple weeks. So really liking Deron Brown as kind of a value play at 4,500 cash.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, what is he averaging, like 45 pass attempts or something like ludicrous
crazy
so far. So yeah, you have Brown up there being talked about quite a bit as well. And then as you start to go down a little bit further through FanShare, at least, you're looking at Devontae Parker, Antonio Brown. Fitz is getting some love this week, and even Garcon. So is there any out of those four guys? So Parker, Brown, Fitzgerald, and Garcon. Is anybody really jumping out to you, Brandon?
Yep, Garcon at 6,100 against Indianapolis. Indianapolis is atrocious, and Garcon has seen 11 more. I'm sorry if you're an Indy fan, my bad. But I mean, you just got to pick on the week. Unfortunately, this is how this works. But he's got 11 more targets than the closest next 49er that's on the list, and that is Carlos Hyde. So I mean, literally, like, he is the centerpiece, and I didn't even want to remotely say it, but Hoyer against weaker defenses does produce. I know that's a dirty play if you go pass per set or the Staffords of the world this week. That's if you really want to dive deep into the dumpster bin. But Hoyer does look for Garcon, and I think that's a good chemistry that they're keeping up right now. So I'm really digging that for 6,100.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you want to hear gross, like, I already have a lineup for King of the Beach with Hoyer and Aldrick Robinson locked in for this week. So
we'll love you for that, man.
I'm going all out.
Do it. Don't look back.
Throwing in the worst takes that I possibly. I mean, I've been doing Hoyer Goodwin every week, and he's concussed, so he's not playing this week. So I gotta, as Adam Levitan calls him, Lord Aldrick. We gotta throw him in there. So then, outside of that, are there any other flyers you're looking at, Steve?
Yeah, Juju, man. Give me some of that Juju with all that, those tough outside corners for Jacksonville. Pittsburgh at home, big favorite. I think implied totals around 26 points for the Steelers this week. And Juju's actually real close to Martavis Bryant in terms of targets as well so far this year, and has scored in the red zone. Once on a shovel pass and also another short touchdown as well. So for 3,500, you could have a lot worse options than Juju Smith-Schuster.
Nice. I like that call. Yeah. That's not.
Who doesn't love a good TD celebration too? Like, who doesn't like Dragon Ball Z? That was a sweet Kamehameha that he hit on people. I don't know if you guys saw that, but that was beast. I became a fan like that day. It was amazing.
So Brandon, anybody else you're considering in the wide receiver group, or?
I'm digging Tate, Golden Tate against Carolina. It's more of a safe play, to be honest with you. At 6,300, he could easily slip into it like a flex position. And he lines up perfectly as far as adding him with Dez and, say, DeAndre Hopkins or so. So you could definitely do some damage in cash with Golden Tate. He's safe. He gets the targets, and that's what you look for is opportunity.
Absolutely. I mean, sticking with that game, I mean, I don't want Cam to laugh at me for talking about routes, but are we this is fucking idiot.
My goodness.
Are we buying into this Funchess thing? Like, what are we doing with that? Like, he's just been perennially underachieving. Can we trust him at all, or is that just a no-go?
The only thing for me with Funchess, he's actually lining up mostly on the side with Darius Slay. So Slay's been actually pretty damn good this year so far. And according to PFF, they don't think he'll shadow Kelvin Benjamin. So if that's the case, and Funchess is lining up mostly against him, I'm kind of off him. I would rather play Benjamin in that game if you're picking a Carolina receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Same for you, Brandon. You're not buying it.
No, I don't believe in bunches of Funchess. I'm definitely now's a good week. If people are fading on KB, why not play Kelvin Benjamin? Give it a shot. You know, I mean, that would, if out of Carolina receivers, you're going to go that way. Go Kelvin Benjamin this week for sure.
Yeah, and just don't play Ed Dixon under any circumstances.
He just blocks. That's all he does. It's just this is what he does. He just pushes him. So that's it.
One more take. Yeah, just wanted to go back to Tyrell Williams this week too, potentially lining up against Eli Apple, who's been just shredded in the Giants secondary. He's that weak link, and folks have really targeted him a bunch on the outside, across from Janoris Jenkins not against DRC. But if Tyrell Williams lines it up against, Eli Apple for 45 to 50% of his routes, he could have a big day.
Yeah, I mean, can anyone explain why Eli Apple was lined up against Evans on that touchdown last week?
Makes no sense.
Like,
it makes no sense at all.
Assignment.
I was at my in-laws and I was like, I can't curse right now. I'm not going to throw things at the television, but there's no reason why this is happening right now. Yeah, it's just, I can't. I honestly think that the Giants-Chargers game is going to end in a tie just because neither of those teams really want to win anything.
Don't deserve it at this point.
Field goals forever.
All right, so if you guys are good, we can head over to tight ends, unless there's anybody we missed.
Yes. No, I think we can move on.
All right, great. So Brandon, why don't I kick it to you? Are we just continuing to ride the Ertz train this week, or what's the story here?
Yep, you do. He's seen 36 targets, and he has the 8th most targets in the league at tight end. Arizona, though they bowed the Honey Badger, and they still have Pat Peterson. They do miss assignments against the tight end, kind of similar to my Broncos, who just missed tight end assignments. So definitely. Zach Ertz at 6,200 would definitely he's just tried and true. I mean, he's definitely in cash play. He's very safe. But if you really want to go dirty, we can go ASJ and talk some Stephon Jenkins. It's Cleveland. Ew. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm actually going to watch that one, but I might have to if I'm putting him in a tight end for 3,500. So this might have to happen.
Yeah. I mean, if Croft can find the box a couple of times, why can't ASJ? Like there's just no limit. There's no limit to how bad Cleveland is against the tight end.
Oh man.
So I think that's fine. I mean, 3,500, he's seen some targets now. He's sort of getting involved in the offense a little bit. So I'm good with that. Anybody else in cash consideration for you, Steve?
I'm not sure about cash wise, but for GPPs, I'm looking at Hunter Henry and or Evan Ingram. Both those teams just really struggle against the tight end position. We know the Giants are notorious for their struggles against tight ends. So I think Hunter Henry, not potentially in cash, but as a GPP play, is a really, really alluring option this week.
Absolutely. Where else are we looking in GPPs, Brandon? Anybody else jumping out to you?
Yep, I like the sleeper Ryan Griffin, the tight end out of Houston. I mean, he's really the only healthy tight end. However, he does catch it. He had caught 5 passes, 61 yards, and a touchdown in week 3. Of course, that was the Patriots, who we see clearly cannot defend or just having a hard time figuring their defense out. But until then, no Eric Berry. So there you go. I mean, it's just one of those secondaries a week. Why not prey on it? Ryan Griffin had a standout one against the secondary that couldn't contain him. You might see it again this week. And for $3,100, that's pretty sweet. I'm liking that.
Yeah, that works for me. So you're leaning Henry, you said, Steve. There's no way you're throwing a little old man Gates in. I feel like I'm just gonna have like the oldest DraftKings lineup.
You got the team from like 2007, but 2007 All-Stars is your DraftKings lineup this week.
I mean, he's getting targets inside the 10. He's still involved to a certain extent. I mean, he's not just cast away to the bench. I mean, the Giants, again, the ineptitude knows no bounds in New York right now. So I don't know. I think it's there's a reasonable shot that he finds the end zone this week. One of them is going to score. Henry or Gates is going to score no matter what. Mm-hmm. So if you figure it out and you hit the right one, I think that's going to pay off pretty nicely this week. Outside of that, for me personally, I'm not really seeing a whole lot. I think we talked about Clay for a minute earlier. I think that price is a little bit too much for me, honestly. If it was, if he was like Witten price, like 4,200-ish, I think I would feel a little bit better about it. But outside of that, I'm really just going to focus in on Ingram because there's clearly something there with Eli right now. And, for him to just keep forcing, and they really have no run game to speak of, I think that could be an interesting way to go. How about defenses? Brandon, is there? I mean, I can never get a good feel for defense personally. I feel like every time I follow the chalk, I get screwed, and every time I try to differentiate, I get screwed. So,
yep.
Anybody there?
Cash, it's survival right now this week. I got the Giants against the Chargers. I still think they can contain them, even though you're seeing a much better moving offense now with the McVay offense, and Todd Gurley seems to be much better in that one. I still think New York's front defensive line is still capable of stuffing that. So for 3,600, why not give it a shot? Philly versus AZ, same price point there. That literally could go either way, but Philly has shown that they're good up against the front recently. Against really, there's no run game, so I mean they don't have much to stop. They just have to contain. And then it's dirty, but Cincy versus Buffalo, because it could go one way or the other. But 3,200 is one of the cheaper options, and Buffalo has two options, McCoy and Clay. So if you can contain those, it can be a much easier day for you. So
yeah, I'm good with that. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, if you want to pay up for the Steelers against Blake Bortles, I mean, it's never a bad option to go up against Blake Bortles on the road. He's notorious for turning the ball over and completing more passes to the other team than his own team. So if you're looking to pay up and you have a couple extra $100 at 3,900, the Steelers, obviously, most expensive team on the slate this week. Really do like that Eagles call against probably the worst offensive line in football right now. And the Cardinals, I would expect at least 4 or 5 sacks in that game for Philly. I mean, the Jets, I hate to say it, but for $3K, like Deshaun Kaiser just cannot read a defense at this point in time. Turn the ball over right and left. He's taking sacks, but doesn't have to take sacks. So I'd probably say for a GPP, you could throw the Jets in there. And also the Ravens. I know EJ Manuel's not as bad as Matt McGloin, but Oakland is just not the same team without Derek Carr. I know Baltimore's traveling on the road after a couple ugly performances in a row, but I'm okay with the Ravens defense this week if you're looking to differentiate your lineup a bit.
Yeah, that works for me. Is there any way if Castle's starting, are we going Dolphins, or is that just too gross?
Can't do it.
Too gross.
No?
Can't do it.
Oh man.
Nope. You can try it, man. Not me.
Man, all right.
If you're going for the bottom of the barrel, like I'd rather play the Bills, who are an actual good defense, against Andy Dalton than pay $100 more for the Dolphins, who we know is pretty terrible.
Yeah. All right. Worth a shot. All right. So how about we hit some stacks and then we get out of here. Brandon, I'll kick it to you first. Is there just a must play stack that you're thinking of this week?
Yes, play the Dallas stack. Go Dak, go Zeke, go Dez. I mean, you can still get some other pieces and still get all 3 of those and still have enough revenue to do it. My other favorite one is going to be Deshaun Watson, Hopkins, and though it's a little dirty, you could still probably get Lamar Miller in there for fairly cheap too. So another good 3 stack. All
right. How about you, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that Indy game, man. Go with Brissett, T.Y. Hilton, and then run it back with Pierre Garçon. You're going to get a lot of target upside, target equity, and Brissett's got that rushing upside too. So if old man Frank can't get in the end zone, you're looking pretty good with those players and that combination of folks. And then also if you're going to do a game stack, I think the Giants and Chargers have a chance to really hit the over there. It's only 45.5 right now, but I think that's got potential shootout written all over it, even though the Chargers are coming east for a 1 p.m. start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm good with that. I mean, I think 67% of the money's on the over in that game right now, so I think that line is still going to keep moving up a little bit. Besides the actually objective good ones that you guys threw out, I'm trying to just find I just need to stick with tonight is the night of the gross picks. So I mean, I'll definitely be going back to the well for Rivers and Williams, no question about it. God,
I got a gross one for you.
I keep almost saying
I got a really dirty one for you if you really want it. So.
I got one. I got Smoking Jay Cutler and Devontae Parker, or Smoking Jay Cutler and Landry. Yeah,
I was going Cutler Parker too. That's God, just the beauty of him standing with his hands on his hips
it's so
in the
good.
Wildcat is just just life imitating art. Like he just memed himself so hard. It was just great last week. Outside of that, I mean, I honestly think this is one of the more, I mean, with the exception of probably like the 2 or 3 like lowest total games, this is a pretty balanced week. And I think you can go a lot of different ways in a GPP. Like if you're max entering something, you can really differentiate and feel pretty good about the potential outcome. So yeah, I think my Hoyer Aldrich stack is going to pay lovely this week, as long as Goodwin's definitely out. So keep an eye out for that. And other than that, I mean, unless you guys have anything else, I think we're going to put a bow on this.
Unless you want the Jet stack that I never want to say out loud, but it's possible.
Do it.
Fine. McCown, go Curse, and go ASJ. And if you're feeling frisky, go Bilal Powell. There you go.
Ooh, little Jets onslaught. And
run it back with Duke, man. Got to run it back with Duke.
Got to get Duke.
There you go.
There you go. Get nasty.
Listen, if you can set that lineup and submit it into a contest, then
it's gonna be really hard. But
I love it.
I'm thinking about it. Oh man,
hey, I've definitely made worse plays, so it's fine. All right. Well, honestly, man, thanks again for coming on, Brandon. Again, you can find him on Twitter at Brandon T. Sanders. We can find Steve at The Real Halupka, and you can find me at Matt Jones TFR. And good luck in all your contests this week. Please, please, please make sure that the Listener League fills again. I think we got about 5 more spots left. So make sure you're telling people about it, inviting people. You can drop us a review on iTunes if you feel so inclined. And thanks again for joining us, and we will talk soon. See ya.